Fetcher's Pet Supply on the north side of the Charleston Square, serving the EIU community since 1991. Fetcher's welcomes all pets on a leash, is open 7 days a week, and offers made in the USA food. Pet supplies for dogs, cats, reptiles, and fish. Fetcher's Pet Supply in Charleston.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
I'll never forget filming this episode in Shelby County. I saw the pictures online, but never imagined the pictures would come to life and be even better in person. On this Paw Report Classic episode, we travel back to the Tower of Bah, aka the Goat Tower. As you'll see, goats love it, and so do the loads of people that drive by. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Paw Report, and do we have a treat for you? We are in Shelby County between Windsor and Findlay on what's known as the Goat Tower Farm, and this is quite the story, and we're joined by David Johnson and his wife Marcia to share this neat story and this neat, unique attraction behind the both of you. Thank you for joining us, and more importantly, thank you for inviting us to the Goat Tower Farm, as you like to call it.
Thank you. You're welcome.
You know, my first question is, I saw some pictures of the tower and I thought, what in the world is that? David, what is a goat tower and why in the world did you decide to put it on your farm here?
Well, there's a long story behind it. I enjoy wine and I subscribe to a wine magazine published in the UK called Decanter. And in one of the publications it had a picture of a goat tower that was in South Africa. And it belonged to the Fairview winery, and the people's name was the Charles Beck family. And they got the idea from when Charles Beck was a younger person. He got the idea when they toured Portugal because they saw a goat tower in Portugal. So that's the original goat tower, is in Portugal. And so they copied it pretty much like it was, although that tower was stone and it had wooden steps. And these newer towers are of course made out of brick or stone and have concrete steps. And then so the first tower, Portugal. The second tower was built in South Africa. Ours is a third tower. The fourth tower was built in Norway, and it's an exact copy of the one in Fairview. And then there's one in Argentina.
So you're thumbing through this magazine, you see that and you think, I have to have that.
Well, yes, because I was raised on a large livestock farm and I enjoy working with animals, and my kids had a goat for a pet. They make wonderful animals for pets, and so we happened to see these Saanen goats, were Swiss mountain milk goats, and so we didn't have any mountains here, so we built a tower for them to climb on. So they're happy. So we have happy goats.
How did you build this? How did you? I know you had some help.
Yes, the man who did the bricklaying for the house, Jack Clough, who was from Herrick, he was a retired bricklayer. He came out of retirement, and when we were all done with all the brickwork around here, Dave had one more project for him. He showed him the picture, and Jack's response was,
he said, "You're the craziest guy I know of."
So how long did it take? And all the bricks are different.
The bricks are handmade brick from North Carolina, and the bricks in themselves are an interesting story because as the light changes and the weather conditions, they have different hues to them. And also, when we shipped the brick in, we had several trailer loads of them. We also ended up with some red velvet ants, and they look like a little bee, a honeybee, only they got red velvet, and so they're still around. We see them every once in a while running around here.
And skinks.
And we also ended up with a skink, and apparently she was a pregnant skink because all of a sudden we have lots of skinks running around here. In fact, there was one.
They're a little lizard.
Yeah, Yeah, and
With
so
blue tails.
yeah, blue tails. And so this last week we saw one. He come up on the porch to say hi and laid there. Of course, I don't know whether it's female or male. I didn't check that out.
So you get the tower done. I'm interested in the top of it because the top is, I mean, obviously the steps around it are a focal point, but so is the top, the roof of it. What is the purpose behind the tall steeple-ish structure?
That's just kind of the way the architectural design was in the old days with their steep roofs on towers and so forth. So we, like I said, we copied the one in South Africa, and that's what it looked like. It had a roof like that. So Jack Clow was the one that laid the brick in the steps.
And his sons helped him.
And he got his sons to help him. And so then I made the frame for the roof, and then I took that frame up to Decatur, and I think Craftsmasters
did the copper work.
Did the copper work on it. And so then we made the top so it will rotate up there, because there's a flap in it where you can go up there with a telescope and look at the stars. And we're working on our 20-year projects right now, and so this one's coming up here pretty quick. So I got to put a motor on it to rotate the top because it's on a track.
What actually makes up the tubular part of the tower, the palace, the goat palace?
Well, it's the bricks, and they're set in this way. So, and then what he did is then he poured concrete floor, and then he took concrete and mortar and then kind of smoothed out the sides so it isn't the rough brick. Mm-hmm. But it's each compartment. And that's
inside the compartments, and you call them apartments, correct?
Yeah, or compartments.
Compartments. Yeah, there's 6 of them. There's 3 on each side.
And they live in there. They sleep in there. They visit in there.
Right. So they come out about 6:30 in the morning and wait for me over on the pad, watching for me to come give them a little bit of food for the morning, and in the winter more because there's no pasture. But yes, they.
So, and you've got a story behind all of your goats, and they're all named, and we're going to get to that. But I guess my question is, you get a goat, and you put them in the pasture, and they look up at this tower, and they're thinking, why is this structure in my pasture? How in the world do you get them to?
No, they automatically. And in fact, we had a baby goat, just the 2nd day old, climbed up to the top of the tower without mom. He went up,
by himself.
But then he got up there and he started crying because he didn't want to come down. It's easy to go up, but it's really harder to come down. So he cried. Dave went up, got him, carried him down. He went right back up, so Dave went up.
Next day.
Yeah. And made him walk down. So he walked behind him and made him walk down. And so then he had it figured out.
Yeah.
And
so there's no training. It's
that's the
put them in a
one.
litter box, and they know how to use the litter box. Put them in front of a goat tower, and they know how to walk up and down.
You betcha. And also, if your car's parked out there, they'll be on top of it too.
Yeah. They're curious animals.
Yes.
You said that the goats were Saanen goats.
Saanen.
Tell me about their breed.
Well, the Saanens are a Swiss dairy goat, and they, of course, are raised in the mountains, and they produce, of course, the Swiss use them for food and milk and cheese, and the nomads also traveled with goats because they're very easy to maintain because they eat anything. They prefer wood and leaves and stuff like that is their favorite. And so with these, the nomads or the gypsies traveling, and they got food and milk and cheese and stuff, and they didn't have.
They don't eat a lot, really.
They don't eat a lot, so they could graze along the.
And they don't drink that much water.
They don't take much water, so they're very low maintenance.
They're milk goats too.
Yes.
You don't milk them. You did it one time, Marcia.
I did a little bit. We had one that had before we had bought her, her kid died. And so she was in milk, and we had to dry her up. So to do that, I milked her for a while, and then gradually she dried up eventually. But I don't think it's something I want to do on a daily basis for a long period of time. I didn't mind doing it for a little bit. I made some cheese, and we drank the milk, and it was very good. But no,
I had when I was being raised on a farm, we milked, and I didn't carry to that too much.
Have you had any, when I think of the concrete steps that go up to the top, I think of, what happens when the winter weather sets in and it gets icy and I have, this fear, you look out your window and you see one of your goats just sliding down. Do you ever have any accidents?
There was an ice storm, and we had some of the goats came out, got out, and most of the time we keep them in the back shed when the weather is bad. And I literally close off the upper compartments in the winter. They only get the bottom 3 for the winter, just in case that happens. Because one time, he and I had to go up with an ice scraper because this one would not come out. She was just too scared. And so I learned my lesson. You do not let them in if you know you're going to get ice, and close them up in the shed, because it is kind of terrifying. I had to go up on my knees scraping because it was that bad.
How tall is the tower?
It's 31 feet tall, and I used a flamethrower.
One of those heat
to melt this ice off the
things.
steps.
Yeah.
It works great. It beats scraping with
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no
So
way you're going to do that.
we learned you don't you watch the weather and make sure you don't leave the goats in if it's going to get
They
icy.
put them in. It's 31 feet tall. It's the world's largest goat tower.
This one.
Yes.
Yeah, it got the largest because we tried to scale it off of the one at Fairview Winery, because in communicating with them, of course, measurements are different in Europe than in South Africa, so they tried to correspond with us and it didn't quite work, so we scaled it off of their goat, standing on the tower.
On their tower.
Their goat must have been a different size, because when he and Jack, the bricklayer, got to, because Fairview only has 4 compartments, so 2 on each side. They got that high and the thing was too squat, so they had to do one more whole wrap to make it look in proportion. So that's how it ended up being the world's largest.
World's largest. And the goats are part of your family. I can tell that. You've been out in the field with them. And what I think is interesting is they all have names and they all have a story, one in particular. So take me through their names, and I want to hear some stories about these.
Right, it's the one right out here, Queen Bee, or
Queen Bee.
Yeah, Bella
Bella.
is her name. And we were in Chicago, and I stayed in Chicago, and Dave was going to go look at a baby goat that I found about 2 months old, had just been weaned, and it was in Kankakee, so he was supposed to stop by and look at the goat. So he stops in, go ahead, and I wasn't with him.
Well, I
but-
stopped at this farm around the Kankakee area and to look at this goat. And so when I got there, he had about 40 goats, and so I went up to the fence to look at the goats, and this Bella came right up, and she said, "I want to go home with you." And so we dickered over the price for a while, and then I said, "Okay, I don't think I want to go back home and get a pickup truck and then come back to get a goat." I said, "Do you have some plastic?" "Yeah, I got some plastic." So we put plastic down in the back seat of the car, and we put Bella in the back seat. She was a little nervous for a while, but not very long. And she put her feet up on the console and looked through the windshield, and she was a real good travel companion. She nibbled on my ear once in a while, and didn't give me any static about how I was driving, and so
She's a better backseat driver than I
right.
am.
And so we got along fine, and then the people on the interstate, they just went crazy when they saw a goat, looking out the windshield.
Did they do a double take?
Yeah, oh yeah, and the kids, if they
I'm
had
sure
kids
they
in the
thought it
cars,
was a
they
dog
thought
at
that was
first,
just
yeah.
crazy.
And you have others too.
Yeah.
So Queen Bee, Bella.
Yeah, and she's the important goat because she got to ride in the BMW, and she knows it, and
She
makes
lets everybody
Got a
else
little
and
know.
she
Yeah,
also
does.
lets everyone else know about it.
So Remus had been here. He had a brother named Romulus, and so Remus had been here. So we put Bella in with him. We had some other goats, but they were old also, and they have died. But so then it's Remus and Queen Bee, and then we got the other ones through the state fair. Different people over there who were showing goats to kind of round out the herd a little bit.
But you've noticed they're friendly with each other. I mean, they kind of partner up. And tell me about how that works with all the compartments.
Yeah. Up on the top, it's Remus and Bella. So So they get the top penthouse. Yeah, and then Delilah and Rudy, who were raised together, they bunk in with each other. And then there's Love Dove, and she was from down near Effingham, and she's kind of solo. I was hoping she'd team up with Bella, but that didn't happen.
How'd you come up with Love Dove?
That was actually the name that she was given because she's got papers that, because the people had showed her, and so she's a registered goat. So that was their name that they gave her, and she really is. She's the sweetest one of the bunch. So they had, and it was their daughter's really special pet. She was pretty upset that her mom sold her, but we love her.
You said bunch. At one time, you've got 5 goats now, but at one time you had a lot more, but
37.
that kind of dwindled. How
37.
come?
Well, it
we
was
basically,
too much.
we started with 11 goats, and we had a rapid population explosion for a couple of years, and that's how we got to over a 3-year period. And so we finally figured out what was causing it, so we sold the belly, and then now we're down to 5 goats.
But also you couldn't keep letting them breed because a lot of them were then related to each
Yeah,
other.
see.
So it was best to get rid of the billy and let everything.
37 was a pretty good bunch. But they play among themselves. They love to a headbutt. They'll just butt one another in the head, you know.
And rear up.
And then, which goat is it that runs against the shed?
Well, that was Cutie.
Cutie, she would run at that shed, and she'd go up there about 6 or 7 feet, and then
Yeah, just do a little flip off.
a little flip off.
Almost like swimmers
Run
when they
against
go against the wall and do a flip. She would do that
Yeah.
against the wall. It was
Yeah,
the
it was
cutest
neat.
thing.
What's the funniest story that you can remember from the goat tower? You probably have more than one, but if you're looking out your window and you see the tower and you just shake your head and start laughing.
When you get an impasse, one's going up, one's going down, and neither one wants to give, and they're just meet there and they stand there for a long time until somebody finally decides, I'm going to go this way and go that way. Also, when I go clean out the tower, Bella comes right in the compartment with me as I'm, sweeping and cleaning out. Yep, she's right in there.
She's nosy.
Oh yeah, none of the rest, just her. She'll come up there with me.
David, what about your favorite story from the tower?
Ooh. Well, that's a good question. I got a
One that I stumped you with?
I got a lot of favorite stories on that tower.
Well, the one when one of them jumped off
yeah,
from
that was
where Remus is right there, jumped off the tower.
yeah. That was an interesting one.
No reason either. She
Just jumped.
did.
And they jump off of there, but not that high. That's
I know,
the
that
highest
scared
one
me.
that ever went on. Didn't hurt her.
No, she sort of stumbled a little bit, dusted herself off, and went out.
Well, I think the interesting stories about the tower is because we have so many people come here and visit us, and we enjoy the people. We've had all walks of life and from all over from different countries and states and everything else. So we get a lot of people in here, and it's really enjoyable for us because we live out here in the sticks and we get lonely, and so we have these people come in and keeping us happy.
I want to hear some of these stories.
Okay.
Well, the most recent one, they were from...
We had 8 Hungarians in here this week, and they were visiting a factory in Mattoon. And so a lot of the people will stay out in the road and take pictures because they don't...
They know it's private property
They
and
don't
they
want to
feel
come
a
up
little-
here. So I happened to be coming from our other place over there, and I saw these, 8 men out in the road. And so I stopped and I said, hey, you guys... Why don't you go up that lane and go in there, and you can go back there and get goaterized. You're welcome, And so
Only
there's
one spoke
only one
English.
spoke English, and so they came up here, and we had a ball with him. Really, he was interpreting, and they'd laugh and have a big time. That was an enjoyable one. Then we had a group of young, I'd say college-age kids that were in Des Moines, Iowa, and they happened to see it on the internet, and so they jumped in the car. 5 of them, and they drove 3 hours or more.
Yeah,
6
just-
hours. It's 6 hours.
They saw it on the internet
Yeah.
and just drove.
Just got in the car and come out here. There they were.
They had a little trouble finding it. They ended up down at a campground down in Shelbyville, but then they eventually located it. So.
And so it's interesting too. Bella loves to catch men with her
shorts
on, and she sticks her horn underneath them and gets them off balance, and they fall over. You know, that's hilarious. That is a funny story about the tower. Right
or
there.
if she comes up behind you, she's really good at button the button. Right. Yeah, she loves to push me when I'm cleaning out feed bowls. She'll come up behind me and give me a little push. Yeah.
Other guest stories?
Well, we've had a guy fly in from Washington.
State of Washington.
And he wanted to build a goat tower
as a tourist attraction for this one community, because they were needing some kind of a
attraction.
Yeah. So he came all the way out and picked up a friend in Chicago. They drove down, and he took lots of measurements and pictures. I don't know if he ever
No, he never
decided.
did. He found out what it cost. So.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that people, when they drive by and you actually talk to them, they might think that you're kind of crazy.
Well, that's probably true. I've heard that before.
Yeah. Why would you
build a goat tower? You probably get that question asked to you over and over.
That's true.
So what makes you happy about the goat tower, both of you?
Well, first of all, it's a folly. And
do you know what it's an English folly? Follies are garden structures that really don't have any purpose. So that's the definition of a folly. So that definitely is a folly. It has no good reason for being there other than the goats do enjoy it. And it gives us pleasure. That's what I look at out my kitchen window. And so I watch them while they watch me.
Well, it's we get I would have never guessed in a million years that it would have been such a huge tourist attraction. And we didn't build it as a tourist attraction. We built it just one of those crazy things.
There was some leftover brick in the house, and I think he just sort of was saying, what are we going to do with this leftover brick? Then he sees that picture, and then we ended up having to get more brick anyway because it took a lot more than...
Yeah, there's 5,000 brick in that tower, and a small house, a smaller house has that many brick in it. And they're all handmade brick from North Carolina, and Jack, when he was laying all this brick around it, he said those things are like laying footballs because there's none of them the same size and they're crinkled all up.
He was a very good, precise bricklayer, and so here he's working with these somewhat irregular bricks. It didn't make him happy. He didn't like that.
He's one of the best bricklayers that I ever had the opportunity to meet. And he was just super at putting that together, and it was actually it's not an easy job to put one of those up. And I always wondered how do you keep it straight? How do you keep the brick all in the same diameter around the tower? Well, I found that out. What they do is they build a scaffolding, and then they put like a plywood
masonite
that goes in a bend. So they got this cylinder, and they just keep moving it up, and they just keep laying the brick around that cylinder, and they just keep going up until they get down.
And then as you're putting the brick, then you're putting the stairs in as you keep going around, putting the stairs in. So.
Well, we so appreciate you letting us come to visit the Goat Tower Farm. It's been so fun, and I can't wait to get a little closer to the tower and say hi to Bella. David and Marcia, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us for this episode of the Paw Report on the road in Shelby County at the Goat Tower. We'll see you next time. A dairy farm in Iowa has its cows on, well, an unusual diet. The cows are being fed half a pound of powdered coffee creamer a day. The owner of Cinnamon Ridge Dairy Farm says he believes it makes the milk taste better, but that's not the only reason he's feeding it to his cows. Marissa Sulek reports.
It might sound utterly weird, but these cows
This is an oddball ingredient.
run on coffee creamer.
It does sound a little cannibalistic, but that's not true at all.
John Maxwell, farmer and owner of Cinnamon Ridge, knows this dusty powder
There's a lot of sugar in it.
helps his dairy cows produce the best milk.
This is energy in my hand, energy that produces milk. Sugar and all of those carbohydrates produce milk.
The creamer is mixed with other cow favorites like hay. So, similar to humans, they eat all their fruits and veggies.
What is it called in the human terms? This is my plate. all put together.
But these bags on bags of coffee creamer are actually helping the environment.
And I always thought food waste was somebody didn't clean up their plate like their mother taught them to, but that's not true.
John and his crew eliminating food waste, taking in 2,000 pounds of creamer that would otherwise go to a landfill.
Dairy sustainability is defined for me as good for the planet, good for the people, and it's profitable.
Half a pound of coffee creamer fed to each cow every day.
Oprah here really does like it.
Adding up to 4 pounds of milk per cow daily.
Let's take this out for now.
A true prize for any dairy farmer.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
Fetcher's Pet Supply on the north side of the Charleston Square, serving the EIU community since 1991. Fetcher's welcomes all pets on a leash, is open 7 days a week, and offers made in the USA food. Pet supplies for dogs, cats, reptiles, and fish. Fetcher's Pet Supply in Charleston.
Additional support for the Paw Report on WEIU is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you.